On today's show, with the Capitals win over the Penguins, it gives them the most points in the NHL.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, with the win over the Penguins tonight, the Capitals now have the most points in all of the NHL. Can you believe it? To start the season, everyone panned this team as a team that was going to miss the playoffs, as the moves that they made in the offseason weren't going to pay off. Who's laughing now as the Capitals sit atop, not of the Metro, not of the Eastern Conference, but in first place, the most points in all of the NHL? I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about the Capitals downing the Penguins. The good times keep rolling for the Caps, and well, the bad times keep rolling for the Pens. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I'll talk about who stood out. There were some key performers in this game, and then I'll talk about net minding and defense. And then in the final segment, I'll talk about why won't the Capitals name a number 1 goalie. But just to get it going here, that is the big takeaway as I record this show on Saturday evening. As with this win tonight, as I record this, the Capitals have the most points in the NHL. I've already mentioned it a few times, but I do believe it deserves underlining. The Caps 67 points, and now the Jets 65. So this is the high water mark for the team this year. Can they keep it going? Is it sustainable? Well, if head coach Spencer Carbery has anything to say about it, I'm going to go ahead and say yes, as he is never complacent, or he is never content with forward line combinations until they get results. And that is what we saw tonight. We saw great production from the second line. We saw Chychrun showing up huge, Protas, Duhaime, Logan Thompson, who I thought at points in this game we were going to be talking about 3 straight shutouts, but all things considered, a great game for the Capitals, giving credit where credit's due. Blomqvist for the Penguins in net. That is a situation that, the Penguins are flailing right now, as they sent their starting netminder. They waived him. Tristan Jarry was waived and subsequently is now on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton team. That I think that, after the dust settles, I think the Penguins will probably be in a better position now in net, if you can believe it, with their starting netminder now playing down with their AHL affiliate. It is an interesting time for that Pens organization, a team that historically has been lights out, really great. They have the hardware to show for it in the rafters, but the Capitals this year are killing it. And like I talked about off the top of the show, these moves that were made last summer, we knew they were good moves. We knew there were a lot of moves, but who knew they were going to pay off this well for this team? But what a game. And the fans are buzzing. What a thrilling night we had Saturday as the Caps took on their biggest rival. They do have other rivals, the Rangers, the Flyers, the Carolina Hurricanes, that kind of thing. But I'm going to go ahead and say that the Pittsburgh Penguins are their biggest rival. And right here in D.C., the buzz was palpable and the stakes were high. Everyone knew the strong 5-on-5 play would be essential for securing that 4th consecutive win. And it's going to be a bit difficult for this team as they go on an extended road trip. And just have a bit of a programming note, those later games, those podcasts will be a little bit later in the day, as I expect some of those games won't wrap up until after midnight. So I will have those reactions later in the day, but a long road trip for the Capitals coming up here. And they're going to be taking on some truly great teams. How will they weather the storm? But right now, they are riding high. A solid victory for this team that, Struggling 5-on-5 is still something that plagues this team. I know that they got off the schneid a little bit tonight, but as of late, if I'm going to talk about here somewhat recently, we know that this team has struggled 5-on-5. A bit of a return to glory tonight, of course. If you take a look at the box score, let's hope they can continue to keep building on that momentum. And with that clinched solid 4-1 victory, pushing their record to an impressive 31, 10, and 5, totaling 67 points. And yes, sitting pretty in first place in the NHL. Big news for this Capitals team. And, it's funny that some people, some insiders, some of the analysts still don't want to give the Capitals any credit. On my way to work in the morning, I'll put on NHL Network Radio, I'll listen to the podcast, and very rarely, despite the Capitals sitting atop of the heap in the NHL, is that the lead story. Sometimes I'll listen to these shows and it's in the back half of their show. What do the Capitals have to do to get some love? And at the end of the day, I think a lot of these people just don't want to be wrong. The insiders, the broadcasters. But what we witnessed was some standout performances. I think the second line was huge, about standout performances by Aliaksei Protas, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Connor McMichael, all shown with multi-point games. And it all started off with Chychrun there, who has a rocket of a shot. That is what I know for sure. And just don't want to get in the way of that. And you've seen what happened with different players that did get in the way of that. It did not go so well for them. And then you take a look as well as Aliaksei Protas, Connor McMichael, to Doobie, to Aliaksei Protas, all money there. That this team is humming along. And how about that formidable goaltending from Logan Thompson, who I'll talk about a little bit later. He made some crucial saves to ensure a smooth ride against the Penguins. There were some high danger chances in the game tonight, to be sure, by the Pittsburgh Penguins, and things got emotional. You saw what could have been perceived as a slew foot on Matt Roy, and Marty Faravari was quick to take care of that and dispatch the situation. It ended up in a penalty, but you got to, be team tough. Upon further review, I just think that when he was going towards Matt Roy, that his knee was out. I don't think it was too deliberate, but it still didn't look good on the initial take, and I'm pretty sure that's what Marty Faravari thought as well. But Jakob Chychrun, again, if you are an everydayer of the show, we need to do what we need to do to make sure he is a Capital in the long term. I have seen enough by Jakob Chychrun to know who he is and who's been on fire. He's ranked 4th among all NHL defensemen with an impressive 23 points in his last 26 games. And like I said, just a rocket for a shot out there that just quite stunning what he is able to put together. Since November 10th, he and Doobie have been leading the league for the Caps, racking up 28 and 25 points respectively over 32 games. Talk about synergy. That is a buzzword that they like to use today. And another player that is warming up, heating up, a guy that was huge for the Capitals earlier in the season is Connor McMichael, a guy that set up for the dirty goals, the greasy goals. That has been part of his secret sauce. He was another one, another player that was involved in the altercation there behind the play. So Connor McMichael, who is just this young kid in the league, is really coming into his own and taking on some tough guys as well. But we're more concentrated, or want to concentrate more on his offensive capabilities, who broke out of a 4-game point drought with 2 assists, bringing his total to 20 points in just 15 games against Metro Division foes this season. Connor McMichael, who the rumblings out there was he on the trade block last summer, as we remember that there was a deal potentially about Rutger McGroarty to the Capitals in return for Connor McMichael, as we see that the Capitals did the wise thing by holding on to him. But taking a look at the box score, if you did not watch the game, PLD with a goal, Aliaksei Protas, Brandon Duhaime with the empty netter, and quite an evening, all things considered, for the team. Jacob Chikrin I missed in there as well. So the offense was humming along, generating a lot of chances. You take a look at it here. Tom Wilson, 7 shots on goal, leading the team with shots on goal and an assist. So, you take a look at it. There were a lot of contributors on this team. Some of them found the back of the net. Some of them were assists. Some of them were just trying to generate offense the way they could. But all things considered, this line, I'm talking about Dylan Strome making his return to the first line and PLD to the second line. That seems to be the secret sauce for this team. But Brandon Duhaime added some icing on the cake with an empty netter marking 3 points in his last 3 outings. A guy with an offensive flair, a guy that is not afraid of throwing down. So I think that, Brandon Duhaime, even though he was on a bit of a goalless drought there for a while, brings some intangibles to the game, a bit of a snarl to his game that I think that sometimes those are the things that are not easily quantifiable. But another player that really popped was Aliaksei Protas. After a rocky few games there, he bounced back tremendously, shifting alongside Doobie and Wilson to make a significant play, including assisting on Chikrin's goal and scoring, one of his own. So Aliaksei Protas is just, growing by leaps and bounds. He is a much different player than he was last year. And just to recount this, I talk about this on the show from time to time, is he was originally slated to be on the third line, and they tinkered with things, put him on the first line. He's played on the second line, that kind of thing, but has really taken the responsibility and grown into his own. He's now netted 19 goals this season, ranking him second on the team and putting him in a prime spot for a 65-point season for good old big Aliaksei Protas. And as far as Pierre-Luc Dubois is concerned, that deal last summer, that trade with the Kings is turning out to be just a true gem. That is what I'm going to go ahead and say there, that, again, and I had questions when that move happened. If they, everyone's telling me it was the wrong move, is there something I'm not seeing here? Put all that to the side. I think that we can view last season. I think that we can view any preconceived notions about PLD and who he is and just go ahead and put those in the recycle bin because he is really ratcheting up his game and ultimately showing just a really, really great move by former GM Brian McClellan. And Dubois, he netted his 9th goal of the season on a late power play and has put up 22 points in his last 23 games. His playmaking at 5-on-5 is 6th in the league with 20 assists. Truly incredible for PLD. So quite a game for the Capitals as they prepare to head out west on a lengthy road trip. We are riding high, and as you are listening to this on either later Saturday or Sunday, as a Capitals fan, you should be feeling pretty good about where this team is at right now. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about net minding and defense, who really stood out. I'll discuss all of that and more straight ahead. Keep it right here. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. Now, listen, there is a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, but we're in the playoffs, and your Washington Commanders are killing it. So if you would like to get in on some Commanders action or one of the other games being played, just open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on those games. All of a sudden, they got that much more exciting. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. Yes, that's $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So talking LT, Logan Thompson, who has been nothing short of stellar this season. Logan Thompson's performance was nothing short of spectacular this evening, making his fourth consecutive start and stopping 18 of 19. And I'll talk about in the next segment about the Capitals' stance on who they want to name number one and number two, and do they plan on riding the hot hand. But the one thing that is clearly apparent to me is that Logan Thompson is playing that much better with regular playing duties. Now, he's sitting at a phenomenal record of 21, 2-3, tied for third in wins in the NHL. A guy that is making around $775,000 is turning out to be a true rock star for this team. And this game did see the return of Charlie Lindgren as the backup, and it's going to be an interesting position and a posture they take going forward here. Now, and get over this, over his last four starts, Logan Thompson, his save percentage is a staggering .979. So interesting for Logan Thompson. Again, we knew he was going to be good. I don't think many people knew he was going to be this good. So what else worked well in this game was strong defensive play. What are some of the things that we know is that the Pittsburgh Penguins are the arch nemesis of the Capitals and vice versa, and they love nothing more than to beat the Capitals, and the Capitals love nothing more than to beat the Penguins. So there is some long-standing bad blood between both of those teams, and things got a bit chippy. And they do have a lot of offensive firepower in the form of Crosby, Malkin, Rust, these kind of players. But defensively, the Capitals executed their game plan to near perfection. I wouldn't say totally perfect, but limiting chances for stars like Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. The only blemish was that breakaway goal by Brian Rust. And that's the goal I was talking about, that I thought to myself, is Logan Thompson on the verge of 3 straight shutouts? Oh, but Brian Rust, well, he had other plans. But the Caps blocked 15 shots and played a strong defensive game overall. And if, it's a bit of Monday morning quarterbacking, I understand that. That John Carlson laying out in front of that puck, I think that had he not done that, I think that perhaps Logan Thompson would have stopped it. Laying out in front of the puck was the right answer, but I think to a certain extent, it almost kind of screened Logan Thompson a little bit, so he wasn't able to fully see the puck. The other thing in this game that I think that needs to get worked on is the Capitals fell into some of their older habits of passing the puck too much. And I know that you want to go for the pretty pass or the pretty goal, but sometimes just shoot the puck. There were at least a couple different moments in this game tonight where I thought to myself, there it is, shoot it. And what did they do? They tried to pass it to someone else, and the pass was broken up by a Penguins player, and they didn't find the back of the net. And, I think that what they always say is pepper the netminder with a lot of shots, and good things will happen. I think they need to adhere to that. Dirty goals, greasy goals, peppering the netminder from every different spot, and good things will happen. I don't want to sound too disparaging about this team, considering that they won 4-1 and are on a roll. But those are the little things I guess I would clean up in the game, is just not overpassing and concentrating on shooting and finding the back of the net. But as far as the Capitals are concerned, taking a look at the schedule, it is going to be a lot of games on the road here coming up here on deck. It is going to be the Oilers on Tuesday. It'll be the Kraken on Thursday, the Canucks on Saturday, the Flames on Tuesday, the Senators Thursday, and the Jets on February 1st. So it is going to be a pretty long stretch here for the Caps on the road, and a lot of late night games. I really don't like that. As we take a look at the schedule, the Oilers game will be 9 o'clock. The Kraken will be 10 o'clock. The Canucks, 10 o'clock. The Flames, 9 o'clock, that kind of thing. So you can ultimately see why some of my shows will have to be later in the day. At the end of the day, I work a 9-to-5 job just like the rest of you guys do. And well, I got kids, all those kind of things. But as far as the Capitals are concerned, it is going to be tough. I think the Oilers have a lot of talent there. And the Capitals and Logan Thompson, I would expect to see in net. Yes, despite the fact that Charlie Lindgren's back in action on the active roster, I think the Capitals would be foolish to not go with LT. I mean, I don't understand the logic there. There's no back-to-backs coming up, but it is going to be a lengthy road trip for the Capitals. Let's hope they can keep the positive momentum going forward. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about why won't the Capitals name a number one netminder. I'll talk about all of that and much more straight ahead. Keep it locked. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. So in this section, we'll talk about the Capitals and why they won't name a number one netminder. And, my thoughts on it, and my thoughts on it, to be clear, have kind of changed. They've evolved over the season just based on the performance of Logan Thompson, the performance from Charlie Lindgren, and I think that the Capitals should keep rolling with LT. Why won't they do it? Why is there reluctance? Well, I have some thoughts on it. Also, some insiders have their thoughts on it as well. So let's dive into that. It's a thrilling time for the Capitals, who are sitting atop of the NHL right now. All of the NHL, not the Metro, not the Eastern Conference, first place, the most points. A huge part of our success can be credited to the exceptional play from Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren. And the interesting thing about the netminding situation for the Caps is that both Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren are in contract years. And what are some of the things that we heard from Elliot Friedman is the Capitals are all in on an LT Chucky combo for the long term. My assessment on it is that it is not going to be the case. I think that Logan Thompson is due for a huge raise. I think the Capitals would be extremely foolish not to give him what he wants, just seeing how he plays out on the ice. And unless Charlie Lindgren is willing to take kind of a substantial pay cut, or not a raise, shall we say, I think that probably Charlie Lindgren will go out and try to seek greener pastures. And being that the Capitals have a viable option in Hunter Shepard or Clay Stevenson in-house in the American League, or if they wanted to go outside the organization for a cheaper option, that is where we're at. Now, the goaltending free agency situation. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Both of the netminders, like I said, will be unrestricted free agents next summer, and it's expected they'll be looking for some significant raises. But so far, there hasn't been much chatter about contract extensions for either LT or Lindgren. Pierre LeBrun, though, from The Athletic, has mentioned the Capitals management is treading carefully. And why is that? Because I don't think they want to tip their hand in case they can't get an LT deal done. What if they can't afford to keep him around here? All of a sudden, Charlie Lindgren looks like a consolation prize, and I don't think the optics of that are too good. They might want to extend one goaltender without the other, as they could throw a wrench into the team's dynamics. And at this point, chemistry is of utmost importance. You take a look at the team and how they're performing, any negative energy could definitely derail their progress. Now, the good news is that they are in discussions with both player agents, seem hopeful that at least one will be inked to a new deal. And what is head coach Spencer Carbery's strategy has been keeping things balanced in net by splitting playing time between Thompson and Lindgren. But as we get to this juncture of the season, and considering how well Logan Thompson has played, why do you want to go to Charlie Lindgren? Unless you saw something in Logan Thompson's game that indicates that he shouldn't be in there, I would keep rolling with a hot hand there. But speaking of Thompson, how about his recent performance? He is killing it out there. And analysts project the next contract could land him a 4-year deal worth around $22.56 million, averaging about $5.64 million per year. How much is he making this year? Around $775,000. My, that is quite a raise. Are the Capitals that all in? I would be. I think that Ted Leonsis is going to have to crack open the piggy bank and get this one done. He's certainly making a case for himself also as a potential Vezina Trophy finalist. Now, on the other hand, Lindgren's numbers, well, they're not quite at Thompson's level. He's still been a valuable player for us, recording a 10-8-2 record into 2.65 goals against and a .901 save percentage. He hasn't looked as good as of late before the injury. He was a real asset in the playoff run last year, and it looks like he could be in line for a 2-year extension worth about $7.94, averaging to around $3.97 mil per year. So you take a look at the 5.64 of LT for annually per year, and you take a look at the $3.97 million per year for Charlie Lindgren, considering the other players that they need to account for. I'm talking about Chychrun, I'm talking about Dowd, all these different players out there that they're going to try to get some of those players back here as well. So it's easy to say, well, just give both the netminders whatever they want. Well, that's not going to leave a lot of money to spare. Also, another player that is due for us a substantial raise is Jacob Chychrun. So everything needs to be in balance, and Chris Patrick is most definitely going to be put to test and how he's going to balance the budget. As we look forward, it seems the Caps have no plans to make either goaltender before the season wraps up or ink them to a new deal before the season wraps up. Rather, Elliot Friedman from Sportsnet has suggested that while we might not keep both guys long-term, neither of them is on the trading block right now, of course. But there are certain teams that might come a knockin', and I think one team, in particular, I might be talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins. What are they struggling with right now? Net minding. Would the Capitals ever entertain an idea of sending someone like Charlie Lindgren to Pittsburgh? That's not the only team, but that is one of the teams that is struggling in net. I know that things are a little bit better for them now, I think, with Nedeljkovic and Blomqvist. But I think that they, a lot like other teams could be looking for an upgrade. But the good news is the Caps will hold exclusive negotiating rights with Thompson and Lindgren until July 1st. My hunch is that LT gets an expensive deal, Charlie Lindgren does not, and they roll with either Hunter Shepard or Clay Stevenson next year, or the only other possible option is they go get kind of a snarled old vet outside of the organization. But an interesting time for the Capitals. As far as the Caps are concerned, they are riding high now. I do not recall a time in recent memory where they had the most points in all of the NHL. I remember them being atop of the Metro or maybe the Eastern Conference, but the most points in all of the NHL, that's quite something. I understand the Winnipeg Jets will be playing games here and they could, match what the Capitals have. But in this moment right now, let's live happy in a vacuum. The Capitals are on top of the world. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.